Okay, very good. We'll begin the Planning Committee meeting of Akron City Council. I'd like to entertain a motion that we accept the minutes of the last meeting.
So moved.
For a second. Thank you. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Against? Okay, hearing none, the minutes will be approved. We do have two items, I believe, that's up for public hearing this afternoon, as well as this evening at 7 o'clock. The procedures is that we will receive a report from the planning department in reference to the conditional use requests. We will then open up the public hearing for comment. We'll ask that you talk about the conditional use request, either in favor or against, or if you just have questions. After that piece, we will then close the public hearing, open it up to questions from the committee. We will then open up to questions to all of council. We'll basically repeat that process this evening at 7 o'clock. After that, we will then request that the committee will make a report to all of council, either in favor, against, or to take time. And those are the procedures. However, before the public hearing, what we'll do is we'll ask if there's anyone that wishes to speak. They need to be sworn in by a representative from our law department. And so the first item that's up for public hearing is ordinance authorizing a conditional use to establish a two-family residence use at 119 South Maple Street. If there's anyone here wishing to speak on this item, I'll ask a representative. I believe Rebecca Advent from our law department is here to swear you in. Rebecca?
Okay, anyone wishing to speak regarding the public hearings, please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth? If so, please say I do.
I do.
Thank you.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Again, the first item that's up for a public hearing is the ordinance authorizing a conditional use to establish a two-family at 119 South Maple. Mr. Antonucci, sorry.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman, committee members. Chris Vanucci, doing business as R&M Baker Real Estate Investments, is requesting permission to establish a two-family residence at this address. Although this property is in UPD 40B, which permits apartment uses, the zoning code requires a property to have a minimum area of 7,000 square feet in order to be developed with a two-family residence. Because the subject property is just under this, has an area of approximately 6,160 square feet, conditional use approval is required. Now, the property is currently developed with a single family house containing 1,688 square feet of living space on 2 floors. The Century home was damaged in a fire in 2018 and has remained vacant since. In October 2020, the City of Akron Housing Appeals Board reviewed the records of the property and ordered the structure to be raised. The property owner has appealed that order and litigation remains pending. The Housing Division issued a list of repairs necessary to comply with the Environmental Health Housing Code. Petitioner would like to convert the dwelling to two-family residence as part of this repair process. The proposed second dwelling unit would contribute to the desired increased density in the neighborhood. This planning staff is of the opinion that sufficient open space is available on this and adjacent lots to provide ample light and air circulation. Aside from the substandard lot size, the development would meet all other zoning code requirements and would raise the density of the area closer to what is recommended in the Land Use and Development Guide Plan. The renovation of this property would help stabilize and rejuvenate this neighborhood and encourage further private investment. And both Planning Commission and planning staff recommend approval subject to conditions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Antonucci, for that report. We'll now open up the public hearing portion that we talked about before. Is there anyone here wishing to speak in favor of this conditional use request? If you could please provide for us your name and address. Is there a Ryan Baker here?
We did have a Ryan Baker sign up, but he has not joined the meeting.
Okie dokie. Okay, anyone wishing to speak in favor of this conditional use request? Anyone wishing to speak in favor? Okay, we're not hearing anyone. Anyone wishing to speak against this proposal on South Maple Street? Anyone wishing to speak against? Anyone? Okay, we're not hearing or seeing anyone. We'll close the public hearing portion and now open up to any committee members who may have questions. Reference to two-family residence at 119 South Maple. Any questions or comments from anyone? I'd like to point out to council that this particular property I've driven by, been playing phone tag with the petitioner. There was housing orders, as I believe Mr. Antonucci may have reported, reference to this property. But I understand that there is a want by the owners to repair and to obtain this conditional use. So hopefully the petitions will be here this evening at 7 o'clock, and we'll be able to hear from them as well. So is there any questions or comments from any committee members or council members at this time? Looking, not seeing anyone. No hands are up. Okay, very good. We'll move on to the second item that's up for a public hearing.
Mr. Chair,
I'm sorry. Oh, Linda Mobian, I see your hand up.
thank you. I'm just curious, no one is here. Are these the same owners that the appeals board wanted them to raise the property after the fire?
They are, yes.
And we think that they have the resources and everything in place to do the repairs? Have they shown us a plan and all that?
They did, yeah. I can actually share the elevation drawing that they submitted, if you'd like to see that.
Do we have time, Mr. Chair?
Yes, absolutely. Please do.
Yeah. That's nice.
Okay, here are the renovations proposed on the exterior. The house is in pretty bad shape, so they do have a track record, this particular group, of renovation for houses in the area. So they've done a pretty decent job. One of the stipulations on the conditional use ordinance is that they have 6 months essentially to complete the work.
Okay. And they have a good track record of doing good work, I'm assuming.
They do.
Okay. No, the drawing looks fine. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Mobian. Mr. Antonucci, you did mention that there's a six-month time frame
There
for
is.
completion of the improvements.
Yes, and that's in line with what Health Housing had recommended for it as well.
Okay, very good. And so after that 6 months, what occurs? If it's not done, if the work isn't.
But if it's not completed, then I believe, and actually Mr. Bremer is here from law, but I believe they would be back having to conform to the orders, the original orders from Housing Appeals Board, and could risk having it demolished.
Okay, very good. Okay, good. And just for the record, the petitioners did reach out over the weekend. We've been playing phone tag back and forth. So further questions or comments? If there's none, we'll move on. I'm not seeing any hands or anything. So, okay, we'll move on to 2, which is a conditional use to establish a type A daycare at 1247 Florida Avenue. Mr. Antonucci. Oh, I'm sorry. First, is there anyone here that may wish to speak on this particular item, would like to be sworn in from a representative, Rebecca Evan, from our law department? Anyone wishing to speak on this particular item must be sworn in by a representative.
Jasmine Hunt, can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
Okay.
Okay, Ms. Hunt, do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're going to give is the truth? If so, please say I do.
I do.
Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. Okay, Mr. Antonucci.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, committee members. Jasmine Hunt is requesting permission to establish a type A child daycare home at this location. The proposed type A daycare home would be located on the ground floor and basement of this 2-story home. The facility would provide services and activities for up to 12 children between the ages of 6 weeks to 12 years of age. It would be operated between the hours of 6:30 a.m. to 11:30 p.m., Monday through Friday, and 8 a.m. to 11:30 p.m., Saturday and Sunday. Providing care for up to 12 children under the age of 12 should not have a detrimental effect on the nearby homes. Providing quality daycare services is beneficial to the entire city, and planning staff and planning commission recommend approval subject to conditions. Thank you.
Thank you for that report, Mr. Antonucci. We'll open up the public hearing portion of this and ask if there's anyone wishing to speak in favor of the conditional use at 1247 Florida Avenue. Is there anyone wishing to speak in favor? I see Ms. Hunt.
Yes.
Would you like to make comment? You're welcome to. Can you please
So it's
provide for us your name and address? Thank you.
my name is Jasmine Hunt, address 1247 Florida Avenue, Akron, Ohio 44314. The type A daycare is not only going to be in the basement, it's actually going to be on the second floor as well, the living room and dining room.
Very good.
It is it's a daycare that's for primarily for special needs children. But we will still accept like school age kids, preschoolers, infants. But it is going to be primarily for special needs children who can't go to like a big daycare facility due to not being able, like some daycares, they don't give medications and they don't have the staff that are equipped to dealing with people who need children who need extra attention. So that's what the daycare is for.
Very good. Thank you, Ms. Hunt. Thank you for providing that service.
Thank
I'm
you.
going to ask if you have anything else to offer, Ms. Hunt?
No, I don't know. I don't know what you mean.
Good. We may have questions, so if you can stick around, please. Thank you.
Okay. You're welcome.
Yeah, I'm going to ask if there's anyone else wishing to make any comments from the community in reference to the conditional use request at 1247 Florida. Any other comments or questions from anyone? Looking for those little hands. Not seeing anyone wishing to speak against the proposal. Anyone wishing to speak against? Okay, not seeing anyone. Okay, we'll close the public hearing and open it up for questions from any committee members at this time. Any questions or comments? Looking for that. Okay, not seeing any questions or comments. Is there any questions or comments from any council representatives? I believe that's Mike Freeman. Your hand is up.
Hey, thank you. I've never spoke with the petitioner before, Ms. Hunt, and I was wondering, maybe Mr. Antonucci could answer this. Has there been any concern from any of the neighboring properties, anyone in proximity to her property?
No, we haven't received any calls in opposition to this. We did receive one. I received one who was just asking questions, but no opposition.
Okay. Could you, Mr. Antonucci, that one that you received, could you forward that over to me?
It was a phone call, and I don't believe she left a forwarding. I'll have to hunt for that if I have.
Okay, but they were satisfied with the response?
They were fine, yeah.
Okay.
This was
very
prior
good.
to planning commission as well. So
Okay. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Fusco.
Thank you, Mr. Freeman. Ms. Hunt, are you okay with, there's like 5 conditions that's attached to this conditional use. I assume you've had an opportunity to review those and you're okay with them?
I did not. I didn't see anything with conditions.
Okay. What we'll do is I'll ask that perhaps afterwards we can go, Mr. Antonucci, and you can maybe go over those to make sure that you're okay with those. Usually on the conditional use request, we place conditions asking the petitioners to follow certain rules and such. So what we'll do is we'll, Mr. Antonucci, do you have Ms. Hunt's phone number?
yes, I'll make sure she takes another. She has a look at that. Yeah, you sent that through planning commission, but I'll make sure she gets that again.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Antonucci. Okay, Ms. Hunt, and I will say this, that this evening at 7 o'clock, you're you're welcome to come back. At 7 o'clock, we'll have an additional public hearing. After that public hearing, what we'll do is we'll make a recommendation to council, the committee, either in favor, against, or just to take time and table the item. So those are the procedures. And welcome you back at 7 o'clock this evening, okay? We'll basically repeat everything.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hunt. Thank you. Okay, short of that, we'll move on to the balance of the agenda, of which I'm going to recommend that we take time on 3 through and including 5, and that we file item number 6. And the reason for that is that application for the historic landmark for the former Akron Beacon Journal building. We voted on that last week. This is just a petition. So I'd like to entertain a motion that we file item number 6. Is there a motion?
I'll make that motion, Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Kamer. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you for the second. All those in favor of filing item number 6, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Against? Very good. The ayes have it. And now I'm going to recommend that we take time on the balance of the agenda at this time. And we move into the new list of legislation, of which item number 2 is new. It's ordinance amending and or supplementing Title 11, Chapter 111, regulations governing specific businesses by adding new Article 12A, third-party food delivery services, and capping commissions chargeable by third-party food delivery services businesses during states of public health emergencies and declaring an emergency. Mr. Hardy, I believe you'd like to report on this particular item.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for the opportunity, members of the committee and council. We bring forth for you today legislation that seeks to address a persistent and still growing problem with many of our locally owned restaurants and bars that are, as you all know, struggling to survive the pandemic and come out of it still able to exist. We all support and have been supporting our local restaurants through all of this. Many of us oftentimes choose to patron these restaurants through a third-party food delivery service, namely Uber Eats, DoorDash, or Grubhub. I know I do and have. I know many of us probably do. Prior to the pandemic, using such a platform was really seen as a choice for a restaurant, whether they were in the business model for delivery or whether they weren't. And many of our dine-in restaurants did not have that as part of their business model. When the pandemic hit, when the quarantines hit, when the customer base really got more and more afraid of coming and eating in, even on a patio, it ceased to become a choice of whether or not you had delivery. You had to use delivery to survive. And, you know, if you didn't have it in your business plan, meaning you don't have your own delivery service or delivery guy or gal, it's very difficult to compete effectively with the national and really global third-party delivery service providers, Uber Eats, Grubhub, and DoorDash. And so a lot of our restaurants have been forced for the last year to utilize these services. And what I don't think a lot of folks realize is how expensive it is for our restaurants to utilize these services. And so what this legislation seeks to do, and if it pleases the committee, Mr. Chairman, I'm going to share my screen here. Can you all see that? You should have this in your digital files on OnBase, but what we seek to do is mirror the actions already taken by the 3 big cities in Ohio, as well as New York and other larger cities, and temporarily cap third-party food delivery service commissions at 15%. They currently sit at 30%. And you'll see in this example, and you'll also hear in a moment from the Ohio Restaurant Association and from 2 locally owned restaurants, how it actually plays out when you're trying to run a business in the state of Ohio and in Akron. But simply put, every time there's a transaction through one of these apps, the restaurant is on the hook for a 30% commission fee to get that food to your door through one of these third-party platforms. What our proposed ordinance does is it deals directly with that commission fee, caps it at 15%, and it runs in parallel to the duration of the pandemic. We all hope that the emergency orders that are in existence both locally with Mayor Horgan and statewide with Governor DeWine, that those are lifted at some point this year, but we have no idea when that will be. And quite honestly, our restaurants can no longer afford to wait for this to abate, for this pandemic to abate. So what we've done is our ordinance runs in parallel, so it sunsets automatically once those emergency orders are lifted and the pandemic is over. But for the duration, as long as we're in a state of declared emergency, either locally or statewide, this legislation would stay in effect. It does not impact an existing business's locally owned delivery service. So if you're a pizza shop and you have your own delivery, that's yours to do. This only deals with, again, the third-party food delivery services, and really it's Uber Eats, DoorDash, and Grubhub. I wanted to give you guys and gals just a real-world example, but you're going to hear even more from a couple of our owners here, so I'll be brief. But I worked with one of our local business owners who have a restaurant in Akron that actually is geared more towards delivery. And if you see here, in 2020, they did over $100,000 through one of those 3 third-party delivery sites. Had this legislation been in place, they would have kept $16,000 here locally in Akron in their coffers. That's helping to keep staff alive. And employed. That's a new hood. That's replacing a broken stove. That's, improving your interior. So when you do open, you can do that. That's rent. That's all those things. But instead, they paid over $32,000 just for the ability to utilize what we all are using, right? We're all at this point using one of these apps from time to time. And so, Mr. Chairman, if it's okay, I'd like to introduce 3 individuals I've asked to come and just briefly speak to the committee for 3 minutes or less about their views on this. Yes, sir.
If I could, yes, thank you, Mr. Hardy. If I could, I'd like to ask that Rebecca swear them in.
Sure.
Just a matter of procedure. Ask those that wish to speak be sworn in by a representative of our law department, please.
Okay, those wishing to speak, could you please raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth? If so, please say I do.
I do.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Hardy, I'll turn it back over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll introduce them and we'll go in the order that I introduced. And so we have with us today Todd Bowen, who is representing the Ohio Restaurant Association. Then we'll have Marcus Harris, who is the restaurant owner of Marcus over at the East End. And then finally, we'll have Chad Magalevi, who representing the ownership of the Diamond Deli. So Todd, take it away.
Awesome. Well, thank you, James, Chair Fusco, Vice Chair Kammer. Just thank you for the opportunity to be here. Really on behalf of Akron's amazing restaurants, I'm with the Ohio Restaurant Association. And as James said, we have been working closely with all of Ohio's restaurants to help them survive this crisis. And I think James could not have stated this more strongly. Delivery became so much more important during this crisis, and it really became a lifeline, allowing some restaurants to survive. But the fees charged by the third-party delivery companies are very high. They start at 30%. Some of the bigger companies are able to negotiate a lower rate, but that really leaves those smaller independent local restaurants even at more of a disadvantage. So doing this legislation now would be both timely, would be a lifeline to help restaurants, as we're hopefully in the final stages, but helping them through the final stages of this crisis, give more of them a chance to be there to help Akron's economy survive is really essential and timely. And thank you very much for considering this today, and happy to take any questions if you've got any.
Thank you, Mr. Bowen. What we'll do is we'll ask that the next person, I believe, would that be Marcus? Speak. You're welcome.
Yes, Marcus.
Yeah, and then after everyone provides for us your testimony, then we'll open up for questions.
Great.
If you can push the button to unmute yourself.
Oh, I did
all
that.
the time. It's okay.
I'm here. Yeah. My name is Marcus Harris. I'm the owner of the restaurant Mark's in the East End. And I will have to say, yeah, I'll be nice. The gouging is a little bit rough. I reluctantly signed up for DoorDash. I have not done Grubhubs or the other because of the 30%. When I first was looking into it, it was around 15, 20%. So when I was talking with the salesperson, that's what I was speaking with. But when she says 30%, it seemed that it kind of coincided when COVID really started taking off. And people are scared to come out and dine, as well they should be. And as I've been saying that it's not the governor, it's not the curfew, it's COVID that's affecting businesses. If your business has 100 seats and you're doing every other table, okay, and you still only have 5 tables filled with customers, unless you have a line outside the door, it's the virus that people are scared of. So we had to go to this delivery service. The problem is they do not want you to up your costs that's on your regular menu to part of that 30%. So they discourage that really. And I understand if customers do know that if they're going to have a delivery service, it's going to be a little more expensive. But you cannot raise your prices 30% overall, because then you're going to really lose customers that way too. So margins are already tight when it comes to anyone in food service, as anyone knows. But to be paying 30% on a charge, like if I have a $10 item, if I don't charge at $13, I'm losing the $7. So then where's the happy medium that you still have supplies, electricity, rent, you have all the same costs that you had before this pandemic hit, but now you're bringing in less income. So the problem really is that delivery charge is just a little bit too high. I have no problem. I don't think none of us have any problem with paying a delivery charge. It's just that high of a delivery charge seems to be a problem.
Gotcha. Thank you. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Chad?
Sorry, it's my first Zoom meeting. I've never done this before.
Welcome.
Well, I'm Chad Magdalene from the Diamond Deli. My family owns it, my dad, my brother, myself. And kind of to go back to what Marcus was saying, the commission rate, no one's against. I mean, that's kind of, they're doing us a favor. They're delivering the food and everything else. I don't know. We don't go through Grubhub and Uber Eats. We're strictly DoorDash. We are capped at 25%. I don't know if that's DoorDash completely, but that's us. But to give an example, I mean, we went from 22 seats in the restaurant. We just recently, as of this month, opened 5 tables. That's all we can fit with regulations and everything else. So with the fee, at least through us, business as the pandemic started, DoorDash is between 30 and 50% of our business throughout the day. And we've actually cut our hours down. We were open till 5, we're down to 3 o'clock now. So cutting the fee, I mean, at least for us, I can look at with saving 10%, that's enough for us to pay our rent, just as an extra income and everything else. So the fact that this is even being talked about is super exciting for us. If you have any questions, I don't really know. We've been fortunate through the whole thing, man. So I can't complain, but this would be huge for a lot of people, including ourselves. So I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you. You did a great job.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. We're going to open up the questions now. I have a couple. Mr. Bowen, the first is kind of like for you, and that is, you hear different statistics, and I don't know if you even have them, but I understand that statewide that, obviously COVID has really hit the restaurant, businesses. And what percentage are you seeing that is maybe difficult to define, but have closed and you believe possibly permanently?
Yeah. The hard thing to ascertain is the permanent, because a lot of folks that are closed temporarily, they don't even really know yet. But our best guess is that nationally, it's probably about 20% that are likely not to make it. We think that might be a little bit less here in Ohio. Ohio's Department of Health and governor and city councils throughout Ohio have been, I think, more supportive than in some states, and that's made a difference, but marginally a difference.
Thank you. Thank you. The next question is for whomever. The tips side of it, how is that divvied up at all? Because I know Sometimes it's on your bill. Sometimes whenever they come and they deliver it, you give them, a couple bucks cash. Is that, I assume, I'm guessing I know what the answer is, but I don't want to assume many things. So can somebody handle that question?
Sure. So I can tell you that we have, similar to what Cleveland did, we have a provision in our legislation that specifically prohibits the third-party companies from penalizing drivers on their wages and tips to make up lost revenue from this cap. So I can say, at least from the when you go in and you click, when you're ordering, I want to give 10%, I want to give 15% tip. They can't, under this ordinance, take any of that money away to try and recoup any lost expenses. I would defer to Marcus or Chad on sort of from their end, whether staff at the restaurant see any tips, but from the driver's side, we have put in protections to make sure they aren't unduly harmed by this.
No, I don't see. The driver just picks up the food and leaves. If the tip is coming to a driver, it will be coming from the customer point of view, not from the business point of view. They just come in, pick up the bag, and they're on their way. Mm-hmm. So if the tips are coming, it's coming from the other side on the portal that we don't see. All we see is the menu piece. We provide the food, make sure everything's there, and we put it in the bag, at least from my end. But we never see what they get tipped or their commissions.
Very good. That's what I kind of assumed. Good. Now, maybe someone from our law department can maybe explain this portion, and that is, like, from a legal standpoint, if how it is that we're able to restrict this from a legal standpoint. I don't know, Rebecca, can you?
Mr. Angeloni's on. He helped in the drafting of this particular piece.
Mr. Angeloni.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. So generally speaking, in terms of the structure, this is kind of fitting into some of our food establishment ordinances, generally speaking, in the grand scheme of things. Specifically on this piece, we are looking at Akron only businesses. So this really is aimed at our local businesses. It's not anything outside the city. So the application will be limited in that sense, but otherwise, we do generally have that authority to implement this in our general scheme.
Good, thank you, Brian. And it was mentioned earlier that this will be lifted whenever exactly what does that look like? Whenever the governor lifts it, or how is that? What does that look like?
Go ahead, Brian.
Sure. So it will actually stay in place per the ordinance as written. It will stay in place until the earlier of council's passage of an ordinance repealing this, or 120 days after the expiration of a stated emergency. So it would be technically still in effect unless council deems it otherwise until both emergency orders are lifted. So both the state and the city would need to lift theirs, or council could do it earlier.
Good, thank you. State and city, I hear that. Ms. Samples.
Thank you, Chairman. So this is a question outside of the legislation that's coming in that maybe Chad or Marcus can answer. Have you thought about, because when you talk about these delivery charges, percentages, whether it's DoorDash or Grubhub, have you thought about your own delivery service? Is that feasible in the city of Akron, or is that a violation? Like having your own people deliver instead of paying a 30% commission?
I can say us at the deli, we've considered it, but we also don't have a POS system. We don't really have a system in place that could actually handle doing our own delivery. And that's kind of the benefit of DoorDash. And that's why it's worth paying the commission, is once the food's gone, it's gone. It's not our responsibility anymore. We have 5 employees. That's it. So it's kind of hard for us to try to bring more people on just to deliver food for 4 hours a day or something like that. So that's the only issue for us, is doing our own probably isn't feasible for us.
And I've been looking for employees because a lot of people, since they're getting, help, don't want to work. But the problem is also insurance, because if you have a delivery service, you have to have a fleet of cars on your insurance, and the insurance is going to be probably double or triple because now they're working for you and they're driving. So any accident or anything that happens is a liability to your business, which will probably make it moot to have your own delivery service unless you're a national chain. but it's been thought about.
Good.
And the last question is, even with the governor's restrictions on how many people you can have in the restaurant, with the weather changing, that wouldn't prohibit you from having outdoor dining, correct? I don't know how you would do it, Marcus, where you are.
Right, because that sidewalk is so close to the street.
Right. So I don't know if that's something that would be within that restriction guideline, or is that something you could think about doing?
In 2 years, we're supposed to be building me a patio where the parking lot is at. Because we're right now in the East End, because the building is granite on the outside, there's a tax abatement with that. So we're waiting for that historical tax abatement to expire. And then we're probably going to be pushing it out. But yeah, I thought about that last year, but on the sidewalk would be too close to the street and too close to the cars, at least for me.
Okay.
I can say, Councilwoman Samples, that if you recall, council passed an emergency measure at the beginning of last summer to allow for outdoor patios. That's still in effect. So we're ready and waiting for folks to have requests, and really just encouraging folks to do that. And then also just to reiterate that this legislation absolutely does not impact a restaurant's ability to have their own delivery service. It's just the third party folks.
Okay, thank you.
You. Any further questions or comments at this time? Looking. There's a lot of moving parts. I'm going to respectfully request 1 week's time. And if any council members, committee members, anyone whatsoever, and any gentlemen who've joined us today have any questions or comments, please let us know. We're more than happy to entertain those questions or comments or adjustments. So I'm going to respectfully request 1 week's time and ask for a motion for 1 week. And next week, we'll ask for a vote on this. So is there a motion for 1 week's time?
Motion for 1 week's time.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor of 1 week's time, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Against? Okay, not hearing any, we will take 1 week's time. Thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate you being here with us.
Thank you very much.
Have a great day.
Thank you. Take care. Thank you, Mr. Hardy, for your input. With that, I believe we're adjourned. Thank you. Sarah, take it away.
Thanks, everyone. Our next committee meeting for today is the Parks and Recreation Committee, and that'll start at 1:45. Those committee members are Neal, Samples, Malik, Lombardo, and Connor. And again, that's the Parks and Recreation Committee that'll start at 1:45.